Hopsh. I'm the Public Information Officer for San Mateo Police Department. You're here today to hear about a cold case on a grisly rape, home invasion, and attempted murder of a woman who was in her San Mateo home back in 1989. Please mute your cell phones, take any conversations outside, and keep your masks on as much as possible. Questions will be taken after the summaries that are provided from law enforcement officials behind me. I'd like to introduce Chief Ed Barberini to provide a summary of the case. Chief?
Thank you, Michael, and good afternoon, and thank you for being here. On Saturday, March 4th of 1989, just after 4 a.m., a female sleeping in her bed alone on the 3100 block of Casa de Campo was brutally attacked. A suspect had entered her home, had forcibly raped her, strangled her, held a knife to her throat, and subsequently stabbed her several times before slashing her throat. Fortunately, our victim in this case survived. And at the time, possible suspects were identified by San Mateo investigators. However, all were determined to be unrelated, and we met dead end after dead end. Evidence collected from the scene continued to be submitted for DNA profiling throughout the years. We did not stop. As DNA technology advanced, investigators continued to ensure this case did not go by the wayside and received the attention it deserved. Submission after submission of DNA evidence led us to where we are today. The identification of our suspect, 55-year-old John Harris Jr., a resident of Manteca. Yesterday, John Harris Jr. was arrested by San Mateo detectives and district attorney's inspectors in Manteca near his place of employment. At the time of the crime, Harris lived in San Mateo, but was not known to the victim. He's lived primarily in the San Francisco Bay Area for most of his life in San Joaquin County. However, in the year 2020, he resided in Tucson, Arizona. And that's significant because we're here today to ensure that there are no other victims that have been victimized by our suspect that have not been brought to the attention of law enforcement. We've reached out to the victim in this case, and understandably she's relieved and appreciative to hear the news. Our hearts go out to her. She's lived 32 years of something that I can't imagine, and I don't think any of us can. And we are while we're announcing the arrest of a suspect in this case, our hearts and thoughts are with the victim. There are a lot of people that I need to thank and express appreciation to have brought this case to this resolution. And first and foremost is the district attorney's office under the leadership of District Attorney Steve Wagstaff. His investigators played a key role and really made this case possible in working in conjunction with our detectives to bring this case to a conclusion. I'd also like to express our appreciation to the FBI, who assisted us in this case and provided the support we needed to make sure that we did identify and arrest a victim. Speaking of the DA's office, of note, I'd like to mention one interesting aspect. At the time of this crime, the sergeant or supervisor of the San Mateo Police Department Detective Bureau was Sergeant Kevin Raffelli. Kevin Raffelli is now an inspector with the San Mateo District Attorney's Office and has seen this case full circle after 32 years and has seen it come to a conclusion. In addition to my appreciation and thanks for the DA's office and the FBI, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention how proud I was of the investigators here at the San Mateo Police Department. The dedication, perseverance, and commitment they've shown to addressing a case like this is indicative of our approach to how we investigate these types of crimes and all types of crimes. We don't quit, nothing gets too cold, and we will continue to pursue these types of cases in any leads that we have in order to resolve these cases, especially a heinous case such as the one that we're talking about today. So right now, that's all the information that I have. That's a summary of the case. Again, I'm just here to provide a summary. The folks who do the real work are standing behind me. I have representatives from the DA's office and from our Detective Bureau here at the San Mateo Police Department. And I'd welcome any questions, but I'll probably defer those questions to those who know the case much better than I do, with the caveat that we'll answer what we can answer without compromising the investigation to this point. We would like to reinforce and remind folks that we're obviously reaching out to law enforcement agencies throughout the Bay Area to to make sure that there are not other cases that are overlooked. But there's a photo of Mr. Harris in your packet. There's a photo up here next to me. And you know, it's been 32 years, and should there be other victims out there, we want to know about it. That's all I have for today, and we'd be happy to answer or welcome any questions. Yes, ma'am.
Is this your longest standing cold case?
I don't know whether you mean an open cold case?
Yeah.
No, it's not our longest standing active open cold case. Now I can't tell you whether it's the longest cold case that's been solved or not. We'd have to look into that, but we do have cold cases that are a little bit older.
Without giving away any details, is there anything you can tell us about what led you to the suspect?
You guys want to talk to that? I did. This is Matt Brody. He's an inspector with the DA's office, and I think he'd be best equipped to answer that question.
Hello, again, my name is Matt Brode. I'm with the DA's office. I'm an inspector there. Essentially, we reopened this case at the request of Kevin Raffelli, who remembered it all this time and asked me while I was working cold cases if it was something I'd be interested in, and of course it was. So we took another look at it, and this was a case that was investigatively, which I can't really disclose, led us to Mr. Harris, and then we were able to confirm that he is a suspect in this case from DNA. That's basically it.
Was this ran through one of these DNA databases, much like the Golden State Killer?
I can't really get into that.
Does your suspect, is he known to law enforcement? Has he had prior convictions or charges?
He does have a minor criminal history. They were misdemeanors in the past, but we do not know of any similar crimes like this that he's committed.
Can you say that the DNA was vital in the break in this case? Can you say how important that was?
Well, of course. I mean, the DNA is what, in the end, matched into this case.
Can you talk?
Go ahead.
Can you talk about the arrest itself? How was it? How did it go down? Did he give you any resistance or say anything?
The arrest was very. It went very smoothly. There was no resistance. There was no issue with the arrest whatsoever. He surrendered peacefully when we addressed him, and we took him into custody without any incident whatsoever.
Have you been in touch with authorities in Tucson for that 1 year he lived there?
I have not yet. No.
Was he only living in San Mateo, or was it locales throughout the Bay Area? Are we talking, there was an Oakland stint, there was a Richmond, there was Marin?
He, from the history that we know about, he's moved quite a bit around the Bay Area, including San Francisco County, San Mateo County, Alameda County, San Joaquin County. He had moved quite a bit in the past, so yes, there's a significant movement history for him.
And you've reached out to all of those agencies?
No, we've not done that yet.
Not done that yet.
What does he do for a living now? And can you tell us a little bit about his background?
Is that something yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, so Mr. Harris, again, lives in Manteca. He works in Manteca, and he works for a business that installs surveillance equipment. And he was arrested near his place of employment yesterday.
A business that sells surveillance equipment?
Yeah, so we've obviously been in close contact with Manteca, and they've been taking all the steps they can to ensure that their community is safe too. We've been communicating closely with them. So,
can you comment on anything the victim may? Obviously, she expressed relief. What can you tell us a little bit more about what she said or what her mood is?
yeah, I'm not. I'd be third hand, so I'm gonna give you something.
Okay.
Yeah, the victim has been. She is definitely a resilient person. She was very thankful to the efforts that were put in. She was expressed relief that this has come to a conclusion for her. It's clearly something that she has lived with every day of her life over the past 30 years. However, at the same time, she has taken steps to move on and has, I think, successfully done that. But at the same time, was extremely relieved and excited to know that this case had progressed to where it is now.
How concerning is it that this man was installing surveillance equipment, given what what he is accused of doing, what he is charged with doing? Was this part of the plan? Maybe why you're reaching out to other agencies, because he knew his way around cameras at homes where, we install these cameras now to say, oh, we're gonna be safe. But if
Yeah.
you've got someone doing this who's installing them, that's concerning.
Sure, no, it would be concerning for any community, and that's why we've been, in constant communication with Manteca. I think they've planned some public outreach, and we've offered to assist with that in any way that we can. This is part of our outreach to let people know that's why the picture's up. I mean, typically we don't do these types of things. To reach out to law enforcement agencies throughout the Bay Area, and in his prior residence, or where he's lived before in Arizona, to let them know what we know, and that's the best that we can do right now. But yeah, I mean, it is a concerning thing that if that happened in our community, we'd have the same concern that I think that they're experiencing over there. So we are doing our best to reach out to everybody and letting them know everything we can regarding this investigation.
Why did it take this long to make an arrest?
Do you want to speak to this? I think that my understanding, and it's been a long time since I got to be a real investigator. I think technology plays a big part of it. I think that the forensic technology are incredible. It's really a tribute to the investigators in 1989 to have the foresight and to think to collect items of evidence and the way that they're maintained and preserved within this building, to have those available to come back again and again as technology advances. It gives us a better shot, and it helps to level the playing field with these types of things. So I would attribute it to that. I think that science played a big deal in this case.
Because you have DNA evidence. Do you have any other evidence, or is it because this case has been going on for so long, is it harder to?
There's bits and pieces, but those are things that we can't get into now. But I like Inspector Brode mentioned, I think that the DNA piece was the key.
Can you tell us how long he was under surveillance, if you can? Was it weeks, months, days? Did this happen quickly?
It happened relatively quickly. I guess I can turn over to Sergeant Pack. Kind of led the team that was out there with the surveillance. I'll let him speak to that.
Sure. Yeah, it was over a time frame, about a month of doing some close surveillance and watching his actions, trying to really do the research on the individual. One, to make sure that we have the right suspect, and two, to make sure that we have evidence collected for the investigation itself. So a little over a month of closely monitored surveillance on the suspect.
And that was in Manteca?
And that was in the Central Valley, if I could say that way.
Okay.
Yeah, but he was living out of Manteca. It did cover Manteca, but it did cover the Central Valley region.
Was he an initial suspect in 1989 or a person of interest during that time?
Sergeant Raffelli may speak for that. He's now with the DA's office as an investigator, but at the time he was working for San Mateo Police Department as a sergeant, and so he oversaw the investigation as a detective sergeant. So I'll turn that question over to him.
Good afternoon, my name is Kevin Raffelli. I'm with the San Mateo County DA's office. To answer your question, no, he was not a suspect at the time. We had no knowledge of him at that time. The investigators had gone out there, processed the scene, contacted neighbors. We just didn't hone in him at the time because we had a whodunit. We didn't know who was doing it. And for the victim in this case, and I'd like to say, I don't want to classify her as a victim. She's a survivor. She has done a stand-up job throughout these years. She has come to the police department during my career here and asked us several times in various years to run DNA check on him, do what you can. So she never let it go. But as Detective Brode had said, she's come to peace with it. And she told both Detective Brode and I that she's forgiven him, but she needs him to be responsible for his actions and have justice be sought on him.
What was your reaction when you heard that, hey, we got a break in this? What were you thinking?
It was great. Detective Brode is an excellent investigator. my office is right next to his, so when he was talking about previous cases he worked, is I told him about this case and said, hey, is there anything you can do on it? It's one of those cases that it just stays in the back of your mind all the time. And he said, sure, let me look at it. And once he gets his teeth into something, he doesn't quit. And he's just done an absolutely fabulous job on identifying the suspect and putting all the pieces together to be able to get this outcome that we have now.
Was this a one-off, the original crime? At that time, as you were investigating that, were there other incidents in and around that time and place? Or was this just?
For the city of San Mateo, and I'll use the term now, one-off, is we did not have a lot of, quote, whodunit rapes that occurred like this, and especially an attempted, or a rape with an attempted homicide, and the manner it had happened. So yes, it was one of those cases that just stays in your mind just because how horrific it was and despicable an act it was.
Any other questions?
What are the exact charges and where do you go from here?
Would you like to answer that? Next steps?
Sure. The investigation isn't over, obviously, it's still ongoing, hence why we're here today. The charges for right now are for attempted murder, which was the arrest warrant that he was arrested for. There are pending charges still moving forward. There are some issues because it's a cold case and that happened so long ago, trying to keep within the statute of limitations, but ongoing investigations ongoing and pending charges may be forthcoming, working with the district attorney's office.
Okay. So no rape charges? Or?
At this point, because of the statute of limitations, there are some issues with that, but we are working with the district attorney's office at this time.
Okay.
The charges are attempted murder at this point.
Is he currently in the San Mateo County Jail?
Yes, he is currently in San Mateo Main County Jail.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, great. Your packets are in the back of the room. They've got images. We'll also send digital copies to everyone on our press distribution list. If you have any questions, my business card is in the back of the room. Feel free to give me a call or send us an email, and we'll get an answer for you. Okay?